If you think that priming is a little hard to take, meet a man who believes that our decisions are affected by what we don't yet know. Dean Radin is one of the world's leading researchers into psychic phenomena.
There's a certain taboo about this topic. When science evolved away from the paranormal and the supernatural, there have been certain pieces of our ancient heritage that were left aside. Telepathy and clairvoyance and precognition and premonition. I'm interested in expanding what we currently know, which almost by definition means you're challenging known theories. And people don't like their theories to be challenged.
If you've ever wondered if premonitions are more than ordinary anticipation, if jumping out of the way just before that tree fell down was more than coincidence, you are not alone. Dr. Radin has designed an experiment that has made many mainstream scientists very upset indeed, because he believes it provides proof of precognition, the ability to look into the future.
One of the implications of this for decision-making is that when we make a decision, most of it, the way we think of it in conventional terms, is we're making the decision based on our memory and our expectations. It's all past stuff which is processed in a way that allows us to make the decision. What these experiments suggest is probably a lot of the decision-making is based on the past, but some of it is based on what's about to occur.
Knowing the future when it comes to making a decision would be pretty handy for anybody. But there are professions where such a skill could mean the difference between life and death. These men are three of the best pilots in America. They are graduates of the U.S. Navy's legendary Top Gun program. The Top Gun pilots are at the top of their tree, but even at this level, some pilots are consistently better. Better at anticipation and better in combat
on board than other pilots.
The unexplained aptitude of the few is difficult to clearly define, but its effect is borne out by hard data. In every armed conflict since World War I, just 4% of fighter pilots have accounted for 40% of total kills.
Turn this.
Dr. Dean Radin is hoping that he can prove that what the pilots call prediction could in fact be precognition, a real ability to actually sense the future. His experiment records a person's emotional response to a series of pictures. The images are from an internationally approved clinical test for emotional response and are selected by the computer at random.
Well, what we're expecting to see is that after a picture is seen, if it's an emotional picture, you'll get a large rise in skin conductance. And after a calm picture, the person remains calm, it'll continue to go down.
So far, so good and unremarkable. But what Dean is looking for is what happens before the randomly selected picture is shown.
What we hope to see then is that before the emotional picture, skin conductance will already begin to go up, and before the calm picture, skin conductance will remain low. And if that occurs, then it shows that there's some aspect of us that is able to outguess what is otherwise a random problem. Well, if it happens completely randomly, that's guessing. If it happens in such a way so that it is systematic, then it suggests that it's not guessing, but it's actually some perception of the future. The pictures that were arising, or your anticipation.
Dean's analyzed the data from his experiments.
This is the period before the picture appeared, and as you see, in both cases, you have anticipation of what you're about to see.
They show that for 3 or more seconds before an image is shown, skin conductance does change consistently in anticipation of that future image. Incredibly, the blue graph shows that before a calm picture, the anticipation is calm. But before an emotional picture is shown, the red trace shows that the anticipation is emotional too.
How can it possibly be that there's a difference in your anticipation for one thing that you haven't seen as opposed to another thing that you haven't seen?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? We know that the laws of classical mechanics and quantum mechanics are time symmetric, which means that there is the direction of time for elementary particles doesn't matter. And so you can then ask the question, well, what would happen in the case of consciousness? Since we don't really understand consciousness very well, could it reach into this domain where time symmetry rules, which is fundamental physics? So here's a moment of a stimulus occurring. A time symmetry would predict that whatever is occurring to the right side should be symmetric to some extent on the left. We have access to our future, at least to the near-term future. And by having access, I mean that we're gaining information from our future and it influences our present.